Usually when we think about history, we picture these massive, loud Hollywood-style events,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. The big stuff.
Yeah, like crashing stock markets, clashing armies, or, crowds panicking in the streets. We're kind of conditioned to measure time by these grand spectacles.
It makes total sense. I mean, because those are the moments that leave the most obvious scars on a timeline. But those loud moments, they often drown out the actual day-to-day reality of an era.
Right. And that is exactly where we're going today in this deep dive. We're going in the complete opposite direction, looking for history in the quiet, empty spaces.
The overlooked stuff.
Exactly. Like a cracked wooden wall, an abandoned gas station on some dusty road, or just a really tired face. Today we're looking at how one photographer, Walker Evans, essentially built America's visual memory during the Great Depression.
And it's such a fascinating topic.
It really is. We're pulling today's deep dive from this incredibly detailed article on SanalSergi, which is this great platform that maps out photography history. And what really struck me in their archive was just this profound sense of shock I felt looking at his images.
Shock. How so?
Well, think about it. We live in this era of smartphone filters, ring lights, and forced smiles. Everyone is constantly curating their image. But looking at Walker Evans's work, it feels like unearthing a completely filterless, silent time capsule.
Oh, yeah, that jarring, unfiltered reality that comes directly from the specific environment he was walking into. I mean, the 1930s wasn't just some temporary economic dip.
Right.
It was a fundamental shattering of American society. Banks had completely collapsed, millions were suddenly destitute, and out in rural America, you had this level of deep, grinding poverty that just stripped away people's illusions.
It was survival mode.
Completely. But, we aren't going to spend our time today just reading off some dry biographical timeline of Evans's life.
No.
We're not tracing where he went to school or what year he bought his first camera.
Definitely not. Because if you really want to understand Walker Evans, you have to look straight through his viewfinder. You have to dive right into the mechanics of how he approached his subjects.
Exactly.
And to understand that filterless feeling we were just talking about, we first have to look at why he was out there taking these photos in the first place. Which brings us to the Farm Security Administration, or the FSA.
Right. So the FSA was a government agency, and under the direction of an economist named Roy Stryker, they launched this massive, completely unprecedented photography program.
And the goal was to document rural poverty.
Right. That was the stated goal, yes.
Yeah.
But Stryker had a very specific political agenda. He needed to justify the existence of his agency and secure government funding.
Follow the money.
Always. Which meant he wanted tear-jerking, highly dramatic propaganda. He explicitly wanted photos of crying mothers and starving children to just, pull at the public's heartstrings.
Wait, okay, so if his boss is literally demanding emotional propaganda to keep the funding flowing, how on earth did Evans get away with bringing back photos of empty barber shops and completely emotionless, stoic faces that had to drive his bosses absolutely crazy?
Oh, they clashed constantly. I mean, the agency thought his work was way too cold, too detached. But Evans, he fundamentally refused to romanticize or dramatize poverty.
He wasn't playing the game.
Not at all. He wasn't interested in generating cheap pity for a political campaign. And a huge part of how he avoided that manufactured drama came down to the actual physical equipment he chose to use.
Ah, the camera itself.
Yeah. Instead of a small, nimble camera that you could just snap pictures with, Evans loved around a massive 8 by 10-inch wooden view camera.
Which, for those who don't know, is an absolute beast of a machine. It sits on this giant, heavy wooden tripod.
Yep.
It has those accordion-like bellows.
Yep.
And it requires the photographer to drape this heavy black cloth over their head just to see the glass-focusing screen.
And then you have to manually slide in a large sheet of film for every single exposure. It takes minutes of highly visible, just clumsy effort to set up one single shot.
So he could never be invisible.
Never. When Walker Evans walked into a dusty yard in Alabama and set up that massive tripod, every single person there knew a photograph was being taken. There was no sneaking a quick shot.
Which creates this dynamic that it feels like an agonizingly long staring contest.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, think about how we react to cameras today. When someone pulls out a smartphone, you instantly put up your social mask.
Right, the reflex smile.
Exactly. You fix your posture, you smile. But because Evans's setup took so incredibly long, his subjects physically couldn't maintain that artificial mask. The fake smile would literally drop from sheer facial exhaustion, leaving only this raw, unvarnished reality.
And when that mask drops, that's when you get his most iconic portrait, which is Allie Mae Burroughs, an Alabama sharecropper.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If you look at that photo, she is positioned perfectly in the center of the frame, looking directly into the lens. Behind her is nothing but a plain, rough-hewn wooden wall.
No distractions.
None. There are no dramatic shadows, no soft focus tricks.
And her face is just etched with this incredible fatigue. Her mouth is held in this tight, flat line, and her brow is slightly furrowed.
It's so intense.
But what really elevates that portrait is the camera placement.
Yeah.
Evans sets the lens exactly at her eye level. It's a completely frontal, flat composition.
Which is such a deliberate choice.
Right. By doing that, he strips away his own ego as the photographer. He isn't angling the camera down to make her look small and pitiful, and he isn't shooting up from below to make her look like some heroic socialist statue either.
It creates a plane of pure, undeniable equality. It's just you, the viewer, and this weary, determined woman. You aren't allowed to pity her. You just have to respect her.
And that eye-level respect wasn't reserved just for human faces, which is wild. He applied the exact same dignity to vernacular architecture. You know, the everyday structures people built to survive.
Oh, like the famous photograph of the roadside fruit stand.
Yes, that is such a striking image.
It really is.
There are no people in the frame at all. It's just a makeshift wooden stall sitting on the side of a dirt road. Someone has stacked some fruit, and there are these incredibly rough, hand-painted signs advertising fish and vegetables.
But because Evan shoots it with that same dead-on, large-format precision, it doesn't look like a pile of roadside trash. He elevates it.
He makes it important.
Exactly. It stands as a quiet, almost sacred monument to small-scale economic resistance. He's showing us that a society's character is embedded in the things they build and the spaces they inhabit, just as much as it is in their expressions.
But, you know, photographing a roadside stand or a face only tells half the story.
True.
The ultimate test of this unfiltered approach was taking that massive camera inside the one place where people are most vulnerable, which is their homes.
Right.
And that brings us to 1936 and his legendary collaboration with the writer James Agee.
Yes. So they were commissioned by Fortune magazine to do a story on cotton tenant farming in the South, which eventually became the landmark book, Let Us Now Praise Famous Men.
Such a powerful book.
Oh, incredibly powerful. To do this, Evans and Agee traveled to Alabama and basically embedded themselves in the daily lives of 3 sharecropper families, the Burroughs, the Fields, and the Tingles.
But wait, I'm trying to picture this, because the sharecropping system was notoriously brutal.
Horrific, yeah.
These families didn't own the land they worked. They were trapped in a cycle of perpetual debt, living in incredibly cramped, uninsulated wooden shacks. You have 2 highly educated, relatively privileged Northerners walking into that deep systemic poverty.
Yeah.
How does that not immediately turn into a horribly intrusive, voyeuristic safari?
Well, it was a massive ethical tightrope, for sure. And the dynamic between the 2 men is kind of how they navigated it. James Agee, the writer, he agonized over their presence.
I bet.
He felt immense guilt and was constantly tormented by the fear that they were exploiting these families' suffering for art.
Andums.
Evans, on the other hand, maintained a surgical, almost clinical objectivity. He completely separated his own emotional anxiety from his lens. He had strict rules for how he would operate inside those homes.
Like what?
For instance, he absolutely refused to use a flashbulb.
Ah, because the sudden pop of a flash is the ultimate intrusion.
It's violent. A harsh artificial flash flattens the space, creates these aggressive shadows, and completely destroys the atmospheric soul of a room. It makes a home look like a crime scene.
Wow, yeah, I never thought of it that way.
So instead, Evans would use the environment itself. He would open the doors and windows to let the blinding, harsh southern sun bounce off the wooden floorboards, using that reflected natural light to gently illuminate the dark interiors.
That's brilliant.
It required incredibly long exposure times, but it preserved the integrity of the space.
And the result of that patience is probably the most profound image we found in the SanalSergi piece. It's simply known as the kitchen corner photograph.
Oh, that one is a masterpiece.
It really is. Again, there are no humans in the frame. We're just looking at a corner of a rough wooden shack. There are a few simple wooden shelves, some incredibly basic mismatched dishware, and a worn-out broom leaning against the wall. That's it.
But the composition...
Right. The more you look at it, the more you see this rhythmic architectural composition. The dirt floor has been meticulously swept by that worn-out broom. The dishes aren't just thrown on the shelf, they are stacked with profound, deliberate care.
It reveals an incredible daily effort to maintain order and dignity in an environment that is literally designed to strip those things away.
Exactly. Evans proves that a society's story isn't just in a crying face or a breadline. The true story of human resilience is hidden in the cleanliness of a wooden shelf. It's the silent evidence of someone saying, I have almost nothing, but I care deeply for what I have.
It's so true. But, taking these incredibly intimate, dignified photos is one thing. They don't shape cultural memory if they just sit in a government filing cabinet in Washington.
Right, nobody sees them.
Exactly. The archive only has power if it enters the public consciousness.
Which brings us to 1938. This is a monumental turning point, not just for Walker Evans, but for the entire medium of photography. The Museum of Modern Art MoMA in New York gives Evans one of their first ever major solo photography exhibitions.
Huge deal.
Massive. And alongside the exhibition, they published the book American Photographs.
To really understand the magnitude of this, you have to understand the art world of the 1930s.
Right, set the scene.
Photography was still fighting just to be taken seriously as a fine art. Before this period, a lot of so-called artistic photography relied on a style called pictorialism.
What's that?
Basically, photographers would use soft focus, scratch their negatives, or use special chemicals to make their photos look like impressionist paintings. They were trying to legitimize the medium by mimicking older art forms.
So trying to make a photo look like a painting.
Precisely. But the MoMA exhibition proved that straight, sharp, unflinching documentary work possessed its own inherent artistic genius. It didn't need to pretend to be a painting.
And the book, American Photographs, is a masterpiece of sequencing. It's not a standard museum catalog where you just slap one pretty picture on each page in chronological order.
Not at all.
Think of Evans as a film editor cutting a movie, or like a DJ mixing tracks. He created a highly conscious, almost musical editorial rhythm. The power is entirely in the juxtaposition.
He is forcing the viewer to make connections between images that seem unrelated at first glance.
Yeah, so you turn the page, and on the right side, you might see that destitute farmer in Alabama completely worn down by the earth. Then you flip the page, and boom, you're hit with a giant, shiny, glamorous Hollywood billboard featuring a perfectly painted, smiling couple.
It's jarring.
Extremely. By placing those two specific images back to back, Evans creates a colliding cultural critique. He is forcing you to reckon with the massive gap between the American dream being sold on the billboards and the American reality being lived in the fields.
He was endlessly fascinated by how America was trying to construct its own identity during a time of crisis. And speaking of identity, that book features the brilliant photo studio window image.
Oh, I love that one.
It's a shot of a glass storefront, entirely plastered with hundreds of tiny passport-style portrait photos, smiling citizens, stern soldiers, little kids, just a sea of tiny, cheap portraits.
It is a brilliant meta-commentary on society's desperate desire to record its own existence. Everyone in that window paid a few cents to have tangible proof that they were here, that they mattered.
Yes.
And true to form, Evans shoots the window perfectly flat, perfectly frontal. He's observing the crowd, documenting the crowd's vanity and vulnerability without ever becoming part of it. He is the ultimate outsider looking in.
But then there's this fascinating pivot he makes right after that massive success at MoMA.
Right.
He has just cemented his legacy as the master of the slow, deliberate, eye-to-eye staring contest in the rural South. But instead of repeating that formula, he leaves the South, goes back to New York City, and plunges into the chaotic underground of the subway system.
Which is such a wild shift. Between 1938 and 1941, he embarks on a project that completely abandons everything we just talked about.
A total 180.
He takes a small Contax 35mm camera, paints the shiny chrome parts black so it won't catch the light, and hides it under his heavy winter coat.
So sneaky.
Right. He lets the lens poke out just between two buttons, and he runs a hidden cable release down his sleeve into his pocket.
Wow.
Then he just sits on the subway, clicking the shutter, taking photos of riders sitting across from him who are completely unaware they're being photographed. These were later published in a book called Many Are Called.
Yeah.
But wait, I have to ask about the ethics and the philosophy of this.
Okay.
Isn't hiding a camera a complete betrayal of that honest frontal relationship he had with Allie Mae Burroughs? Why the sudden sneakiness?
It totally looks like a contradiction on the surface, I'll give you that, but it actually stems from the exact same desire, which is the pursuit of the unvarnished truth.
How so?
Well, Evans realized that the psychology of the urban metropolis is fundamentally different from the rural South. In Alabama, the slow pace of life and the grueling setup of the 8x10 camera allowed him to outweight the subject's social mask.
Ah, so the staring contest worked because he had the time to win it.
Exactly. But in the crowded, chaotic city, people are permanently on guard. The urban environment demands a psychological shield. The second a New Yorker on a subway train sees a camera pointed at them, that mask snaps up instantly.
They guard themselves.
Right. They either perform for the lens or they hide their face. To capture the true, lonely, alienated reality of the modern city commuter, Evans realized he had to erase his own presence entirely. He had to become invisible so they wouldn't perform.
So the only way to get the honest photo in the city was to deceive the subject about taking it. And the atmosphere of those subway portraits is incredibly intense. You look at these faces, they are so inward-looking.
Very haunting.
They are lost in deep thought or anxiety or just the sheer blank exhaustion of the commute. And they're physically framed by the harsh, cold steel lines of the train car.
Which really boxes them in.
It does. It captures the ultimate modern paradox of urban life. You have people sitting literally inches apart on a subway bench, rubbing shoulders, yet psychologically they are miles and miles away from each other.
It's the visual definition of modern alienation. He managed to photograph the internal monologue of the city.
So we've gone from the dusty back roads of Alabama to the steel tunnels of New York.
We have.
What does this all add up to? I mean, how did this quiet, observant, filterless style actually alter the DNA of photography moving forward?
Well, Evans essentially stripped documentary photography of its need for forced heroism and cheap tragedy. Before Evans, a lot of documentary work felt like a Victorian morality play. It felt like the photographer needed clear villains, absolute tragic victims, or flawless heroes to make a photograph seem important.
It had to be epic.
Right, it had to be a huge statement. Evans dismantled that entirely. He left us with a profound legacy. The understanding that ordinary life, just life as it is actually lived, without dramatic lighting or posing, is entirely worthy of historical documentation.
And you can really see that aesthetic shift in two final images from his archive that we should mention.
Oh, definitely.
First, there's a cityscape he took from a high vantage point. It's just a rain-slick street, a line of parked cars, and some bare trees. There's no action, no explosion, no parade.
Nothing happening.
Exactly. But it is deeply calm with his strong rhythmic perspective. It makes you realize that an empty street has a mood and a pulse all its own.
And the second image is a shot of these very ordinary, drab, working-class houses in the foreground, but they are completely dwarfed by a giant, brightly colored advertising billboard looming directly behind them.
I know that one.
In one single, perfectly framed shot, he blends architecture, commerce, and daily life. It's a complete, complex sentence about American capitalism delivered without a single word.
And that specific visual language? That way of observing the irony, the commercialism, and the quiet poetry of the everyday street that became the blueprint for the next generation.
Absolutely did.
We're talking about the absolute legends of street photography who inherited this exact eye.
People like Robert Frank.
Yes, Robert Frank, Lee Friedlander, Gary Winogrand, Stephen Shore. Evans taught them all how to look at the street, the city, and the country with a filmless, unflinching, honest eye.
He really did.
He taught them to look at what was actually there, not what they wished was there.
He trained a whole generation to see the profound in the mundane.
So, if we synthesize this whole journey, Walker Evans proved something vital. He proved that the real story of the nation doesn't live in the loud historic headlines.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't live in the polished speeches of politicians or the grand spectacles. It lives in the silent, overlooked corners. It's embedded in the hand-painted wooden signs, the tired eyes of a commuter, the careful arrangement of a dish on a kitchen shelf.
Because history is happening right now, constantly, in the mundane details we walk past and ignore every single day.
So I want to leave you, the listener, a final thought to mull over. The next time you walk down your own completely ordinary street, try looking at it through Walker Evans's viewfinder.
Slow down.
Yeah, slow down. Look at that empty bus stop bench. Look at the neon sign of the corner bodega buzzing in the rain. Look at the weeds growing through the cracked pavement.
Pay attention to the details.
Exactly. If a photographer were to capture the absolute truth of our era, right now, today, which of those silent objects would be the witness to our history?
It completely changes how you navigate your own neighborhood.
It really does. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep observing the world around you because the silent time capsules are everywhere, just waiting to be noticed.